So we've stopped part way. We hadn't planned the stop, but saw this castle and the beautiful walls going all the way up around the mountain, so we thought we'd take a break here. Oh yeah, little fish.
And then the new one.
So there's the walls up there, and I've just seen them advertising a marathon on those walls, which sounds absolutely crazy. Crazy people.
When we were facing this,
They also harvest salt here. So this is a very new road which they put in along with a bridge to bypass having to go through Bosnia. Previously, if you wanted to go up the coast, there was a little part where Bosnia came out to the water and you had to go through it, so this saves a lot of time. So this is the big bridge. Just over there is Bosnia, and we've come out on a big long peninsula and then crossed over the last little bit on a bridge to avoid the border crossing. So we've just arrived in Šibenik. This is also on the Adriatic coast, a little bit further up, just near Split. We weren't planning on coming here specifically, we just wanted a spot that was sort of halfway in between Dubrovnik and Slovenia, but it turns out there's lots of stuff to do here. There's 4 forts in the town. There's a very famous church of St. James. Some beautiful islands just off the coast. There's a guard standing there looking all mean and gruff. 2 guards. Wouldn't want to mess with them. Wow.
stand tall.
So we've got 4 days here. I'm going to see what the town has to offer. There's another fort on that hill up there. Yeah, another Eastern European car spotted. A Zastava Jugo. Scala. St. Anna's Cemetery. A whole lot of crypts right in the shadow of the fort. So the cemetery actually has one of the best views in the city.
Little alleyways.
So this is the grotto right next to the monastery. So that is St. James Cathedral. Now apparently it's the only building of this type that's built entirely from stone. So it doesn't use any bricks or concrete or anything. Basically all the stones were just carved up to fit together perfectly.
Like you just
It's also unique in that it has statues of dozens of just common people. Nobody famous, just commoners that the sculptor found. There's something like 17 churches altogether in this small town. So that's the start of the islands, just off the coast, and there's dozens and dozens of little boats going through that channel there, and hopefully one day we are going to walk along the edge of that channel to another fort.
That's where we were.
That's where we were, at the church.
Oh, like bed.
So the end of a productive day, bit of work done, bit of schoolwork, saw the town. We're about to have dinner
Yeah, we're gonna have it
on the
right
patio.
now.
Beautiful
We're gonna have it right now.
Croatian evening. Just going for a lovely evening drive down the road towards the beach. Now this is a mixture of salt and fresh water because it comes from the lakes but then mixes with the tidal inlet. Late night visit to the park. So we're doing the walk along St. Anthony's Canal, which is just outside of Šibenik, and it's where most of the boats go through to get to the islands off the coast. And there's a whole lot of things to see along the canal. There's the fort of St. Nicholas, which is just there. I'm going to be walking across the causeway to that. You can see all the boats going past there. There's an old U-boat pen or tunnel, and there's some nice beaches, so it should be a good walk.
Fire away!
So it's very salty around here. They actually collect salt in a few different areas along this coast, and these plants really like the salt. They've gone all crimson from it. Some sort of broken down walls, and looks like smaller bunkers just near the fort.
When I have to get out is when, and then we can.
So this is a Venetian fort, when the Venetians were powerful along this coast. It was completed in 1540, so it's almost 500 years old. Looks a lot more modern than that, but it was built on the site of a Benedictine monastery named St. Nicholas Monastery, so that's where it gets the name, Fort of St. Nicholas.
Came from.
So we're picking our way across the rocks. It's a little bit more difficult than what we thought, but we'll get there. So unfortunately we can't go in the fort. We're just going to have a poke around the outer walls.
Good idea.
So a little dock just around the point, some sort of storage facilities. Don't know if that was originally part of where the submarine bunker is, but we'll find out. Dobre došli Šibenik. Welcome to Šibenik. Busy little waterway. Made it to the submarine pen. That looks like a bit of a vent there. And the steps down. Now the reason they were able to put a submarine pen here is because this canal is actually made from a glacial river, so it's incredibly deep, so it was a good spot for the submarines to come in, still underwater, and then to surface in the tunnel. And they didn't only use it for submarines, they also used it for motor torpedo boats. So the Germans built it, but then when Croatia was part of Yugoslavia, they continued using it and developed it a little bit more for torpedo boats. Ta-da! And that is the tunnel.
You know you can go through it.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's just for boats.
Yeah, that's to stop boats going in. Yeah. This is pretty cool. What do you reckon, guys? I don't know. I think there'll be another exit out.
Looks like that was just like for some storage.
Yep.
Another way out.
So it's interesting seeing all the calcite, or calcium seeping through in these little stalactites and along the wall. You can see it coming through the cracks here.
What is it?
It's calcite.
What's that?
Calcium. It's water that has bits of calcium in it, and the calcium stays and hardens, and that's how you make stalactites and stalagmites.
Yeah. The one
So before we get to the tunnel, there's a little chapel here as well.
it's actually just they found a cave and they put stuff in there.
Ah, okay. So they just used an existing cave for the chapel.
But the chapel is so cool.
Is it?
Yeah. Yeah.
What's
you
in
can
there?
see it. Yeah, it's so cool.
Go and show me.
It's so cool. Come on. Just up here. It is so cool. You should.
Oh wow.
Cool, right? And after that, I want to explore in that cave. After you see the chapel.
Okay.
See, it's so cool.
I see.
Like, see, there's the.
So they just bricked up the front entrance. There you go.
See,
Here's the pulpit.
They just found a cave, just put stuff in.
Uh-huh. And then what's in here?
Yeah. We seen it before, and it's so cool. It goes down. Come Trick you.
Trick me. The next trick would be to lock the door on me and keep me in here. Ah! Let me out, let me out!
Hello.
Some little half-buried storage units here, probably for storing ammunition or torpedoes.
To Bergen, Oslo, and into German lands via the trading cities of the Hanseatic.
So we're on our way to Slovenia. It started raining, and coming from the height of summer, it's now 11 degrees outside. So a quick break. Very different countryside here on the way north in Croatia towards Slovenia. And it's 9.5 degrees out there at the moment, which is a little bit of a shock to us actually, because we've been in mid-20s for so long now. This is the border crossing into Slovenia, a small one. So we're sitting at the border of Slovenia. They've got our passports, and someone's going to talk to their supervisor, because officially for most countries you're only allowed to stay in the Schengen area for 3 months, and then you have to go out for another 3 months or so, but from what we understood and read, New Zealand doesn't have that issue. So we're back in Croatia. We got kicked out of Slovenia, or that is to say we got allowed about 5 meters into Slovenia, and then they refused us entry because we've stayed too long in the Schengen zone. Now that's according to them. Of course, we have a bilateral visa waiver agreement which they struggled to understand or interpret, and I suppose it can be interpreted a few different ways. But basically what it means for the other European countries that we have that agreement with, a stay in those countries shouldn't count towards any stay in any other Schengen area, but it depends on how the border guards apply that rule. So, back in Croatia, we'll catch a ferry across to Italy and then go up that way. That means we've had to cancel our Airbnb that we were going to stay at. We've had to furiously look around for another one just for tonight. We're going to have to book a ferry across to Italy. Hopefully we can get one tomorrow. Unfortunately there's no ferries that go from close to here, so we're going to have to head about 4.5 hours away to catch a ferry. But anyway, we will overcome, and it's all part of the fun of travelling. So we're in our Airbnb back in Croatia. We've gotten into our warm clothes because it is definitely a lot colder here, although I wasn't expecting the Slovenians' reception to be so frosty. I have to admit, it's the first time I've been refused entry to a country, so that was an interesting experience. But yeah, sometimes it's fun to sort out these travel issues as well. So there was a few options that we had, but we shouldn't have any trouble getting into Italy because we have a bilateral visa waiver with them, which we don't have with the Slovenians. So we are going to stay here one night. We've got to look into ferry options to get back across to Italy. We'll still end up in Venice in a couple of days. That was what the plan was anyway. We'll just be going there a slightly different way. Just taken a post-dinner stroll from our Airbnb here in Otočak. Beautiful river, some lovely white swans floating past. It's definitely a lot colder now. It's amazing how quickly it's changed. Yesterday we were in shorts and t-shirts sweating, and now we're in trousers, jumpers. I could almost be wearing a beanie. Autumn's definitely here, so we're going to have to change the way we dress a little bit. Heading into Trogir on the way to Split. Our ferry's at 7:30 tonight, so we've got a bit of time to kill. So we're about to explore the old town of Trogir, which is basically just that island in front of us. We've got maybe 6 hours before our ferry goes, so we've got at least 3 hours to kill. So this is one of the squares of Trogir. A lot of this stuff was built in the 14th and 15th centuries. And the Venetians conquered the town around about then. So a lot of their influences here. This is out one of the doors of the wall of the city. To the pier. No, this is not the ferry we're going on. We're going on a much bigger one that we can drive onto. That one's name is Casanova.
teeth, like sharp.
So this fort was built by the Venetians in the mid 1400s. Kids are checking out the sea sponge.
Coral reef.
So we're sitting here in Split, waiting for the ferry to Ancona, which is just there. It's quite a busy and compact little port. So, we are somewhat experts, luxury apartments, when it comes to ship cabins. We paid a little bit extra, not much, to be honest, to get an outside cabin with a window
Whoa!
and an ensuite. And it's actually the biggest cabin we've had so far on this trip. And hopefully we won't need it again. Hopefully the Italians let us in, unlike the Slovenians. But we won't know for sure until we're there. Wildy coyote and a cool playground. So we've got half an hour before we leave. Kids are burning off some energy. Beautiful evening in the port of Split. Mummy and Devs have gone to bed. Us party animals are out here.
Okay, yeah. So what are we doing?
We are on a ferry from Split to Ancona, Croatia to Italy.
And why do we have to come on another ferry when you can?
Yes, now that is a very good question. The reason we had to come on this ferry was because we're not allowed to go through Slovenia.
And why are we not allowed to?
They won't let us in because we've stayed too long in the Schengen zone. Now hopefully we haven't stayed too long for Italian rules.
Yeah. And if we do, what are we going to say? What?
I don't know, what are we going to say?
We are going to say that we're going to say all our stuff is in Holland and we need to get back to Holland. So, if they say, nah, just go back, just go to Slovenia, we'll be like, we've already been there. And they said no because we, what Dad said. And so we need to get back up to Holland to go back to New Zealand. That's what we're going to say.
That's right. Beautiful morning. Coming into Ancona.
Gentili passeggeri, vi preghiamo di liberare le cabine. Di restringere.
So, they let us into Italy, which is a big relief because the rules are so darn confusing. And we're pretty sure we're within the rules, but you never know. But they let us in, we're back on the continent.